and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Julie, and on this channel, I like to share my thoughts and my processes on self development, self improvement, as well as some practical how to guides when we look at trying to become the best version of ourselves. Now, this is a personal journey for me, and I'm sharing what I've found works for me. I'll also share what doesn't work because sometimes what works for one person may not work for everybody. And as a result, I'll share both the good and the bad. I encourage everybody to find what works for them. Now, in the previous two videos, I shared about what is self awareness and what we are trying to achieve on this channel as far as self development goes. Now, when it comes to self awareness, one of the key areas that we can utilize to help us to become more self aware is what we call journaling. And I'm going to share with you today my journaling practices. Now, please note, as I said, this is my journey. This is what I'm sort of working with. And even on my own journey, I still tweak it, I still change things around. This is not a one step and I'm done. This is what I'm trying now, and this is how it helps me. So I am a little bit of a journal queen. I do have different journals for different activities, and I've found that I can't do it all in one. And so I'm going to talk about sort of some of the journaling practices. I also do utilize my computer to help me with certain aspects of journaling, and I'll explain those as we go along. Now, the first journal that I use is my bullet journal. This is the one that is adapted from Ryder Carroll's bullet journal method. As I said, adapted. I had to find something that worked for me. So mine is a smaller piece. And what I do is I have a year, so the next 12 months in the calendar, and then I break it down into month by month, at least 12 months in advance, which is for my actual work, so I can make those bookings and keep track of them. At the beginning of each month, I create a monthly spread, and I have a list of things to buy, things to do, goals for the month, as well as miscellaneous. Then each week is broken down into events on one half of the page and activities on the other half of the page, except for the weekends, which is just a single section each, because I don't tend to do as many activities or tasks. And so that is just for carrying around, keeping track of events, keeping track of what I need to do on a day to day basis. I also do have electronic calendars, it's inevitable, but this is my go to. This is where I look first. Then the second journal that I use on a daily basis is this lovely mental health journal that my friend bought me for Christmas. And it's really good because it has sections on uh, what we can do to certain areas each month of focus that can help us to concentrate on certain areas of our mental health. What I've really liked about using this journal this year is the fact that each week it has a three priorities. And so each Sunday, Monday, I get to think about what are the three things I really want to achieve this week. And then each day I get to then again focus what are the three things I want to achieve today. And then I put in my three things that I'm grateful for. This is the only thing that I've been able to get working on a regular basis as far as gratitude goes. I've really struggled to incorporate that as a practice. And so just writing three things once a day seems to be the way I'm able to do this with any consistency. I then write some affirmations. So, one of the things is that I regularly feel that I'm not enough. And so I simply write the statement, I am enough. And then I write a second affirmation as to a long term goal that I have. I will become. And I just do that to remind myself of what it is that I'm actually really wanting in this life. So when I'm looking at setting my activities for the week, when I'm looking at setting my tasks for the days, I know that this is what I want to achieve, and I can look at what am I doing to take steps towards achieving that. And then I write, what am I feeling? How would I like to feel? And one step, one action I can take towards achieving that. Now, one of the things I realized was that deciding what my emotion was actually really difficult. And so I printed out an emotion wheel. There's loads of them available on Google. And I just try to contemplate, what am I really thinking? What is it that is at heart right now? And then what would I like if it was an ideal day? How might I like to feel? Now, sometimes I might be feeling the way I want to feel. And so, how do I maintain that? And the activity or the task, in order for that to happen, is very specific and it's very easy to do. It's something that I can do almost immediately upon closing the diary. Now, one other thing I use the diary for is each month there is again, it starts with a set of priorities and then it's Monday through Sunday, and it's just a set of boxes. So you can see here we have October and it's blank. What I do is on a daily basis, I use this as like a habit tracker. I'm not very good at doing all the boxes and everything. It gets terribly complicated and takes too much time. So each day I just say, okay, what were the habits that I wanted to do? I wanted to exercise. I wanted to journal. I wanted to declutter my house. I want to do Duolingo. Whatever it is that I'm trying to create that habit around, I just put it as a list and then I just write down or I put a little abbreviation that I've actually done it that day. And again, it's just a way of tracking. And one of the things I find with tracking is that by writing it down, it encourages you to do it, but also it gives you a little sense of accomplishment. So you want to do it again. So it gives you that little reward. Well, at least for me, it is a reward. Now, one of the other types of journaling that I do on a daily basis is the writing down. I have this one is a computer one. So I have it as a event in my calendar, and it's a link to a Google form, which is on my values. Now, my values are creativity, connection, communication, and consistent and constant learning. And so, what I try to do is each day in the morning, I start off by thinking, yesterday, did I live my values? And I just write one or two sentences around whether I did or I didn't. And then in the second one, how can I live my values? And I give it some thought as to what is preventing me if I keep putting down, I need to exercise as a value. And I do, because exercise is important at my age, as well as, being able to stay healthy. So it's a value. I know I didn't list it in my values, but it is important to me. It's kind of a non negotiable value. And so, what's getting in my way of that? And what is one thing I can do today that can help me to achieve that value? One of the things I realized is that I might spend a lot of time doing non creative writing and not enough time creative writing. And so, if you write this down enough times, I didn't write creatively, you have to think, well, why not? Is this really a value if you're not doing it? And so what I did was I adjusted my calendar in order for this to become something that I was actually able to do on a daily, if not most days of the week, I will write creatively. Now, the next type of journaling that I do is what we call morning pages. Now, morning pages is from The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and she has this morning pages, which is 3 pages of download from your brain, stream of consciousness writing at the very start of the day. Now, I liked that, but it didn't work for me. It took too long. I can't get up early enough to do that, and it's because I have my writing classes at 6 or 5 a.m. And as a result, by the time I actually get around to having a moment to do this, it's usually about 10 o'clock. So instead of stressing myself out and trying to get up earlier, what I do is I was doing 3 pages at around 10. But what I found was it was taking too long and I just wasn't doing it. So I compromised and I now write 1 page. Now, the reason for the one page and for putting it in there, I did actually stop doing it for a couple of weeks. And what I noticed was that my chaotic thoughts increased. I had more random thoughts that were not useful. Whereas when I utilize the down conscious stream of conscious writing, it gives me that opportunity to just download all those thoughts that plague your mind, that get in your way of doing things, that prevent you from focusing. And when I get rid of that, and I do, I literally, when I finish with the piece of paper, I put it in a folder and it stays in another place where I never look at it again. It's just I've downloaded it and now I don't need to deal with it. Or if as I'm downloading, I realize, oh, I need to do this thing. I will add that to my calendar, or I'll put it in my diary, or I'll make a note of it somewhere, and then I'll go back to the page. So I do that in the morning. And then in the evening, I do a second download, but it's less of a download and more of a congratulations. And I do it on two aspects. One is, what have I done today to treat myself as a precious object? And this is adapted from Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way again. And the reason I do this is that we are so often focused on all the things we don't do, we forget it to notice or to sort of highlight all the things that I actually managed to do in the day. You know, you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, I've done nothing. But actually, if you have a look at it, you realize if you start to write down, what have I done? You've actually done a lot more than you realize. And so, what I do is I start by thinking, well, what have I done to look after myself? I've eaten 3 nutritious meals. I've had a nap because I was tired during the day. I've taken the time to exercise as I have scheduled. There's just things like that where I've taken the time to look after myself, to put my own needs, my own physical comfort ahead of maybe my to-do list, for example, or my obligations. So that I always start off with that, just listing what I've done. Taking my medication with a meal is another thing that I consider important, but I don't always do it. And so tracking it helps me to create that habit that I want. Now, the other thing that I do is I then say, what actions have I taken towards my key goal? Now, I mentioned I write my goal each morning in my other journal, my mental health journal. I then say, okay, what did I do today? Now, sometimes it might just be I wrote for 10 minutes. That's okay. If that's what it is to get me to becoming a novelist, fine. But sometimes it's a little bit longer than that. And if I need to, if I get to the end of the day and I'm a little bit chaotic in my thoughts, I'll also just do a little download. Just write it out, because then I can go to bed without all of those churning thoughts in my head. I do one more thing of journaling, and that is I have another Google form at the end of the day, which I ask myself a few things. How happy was I today on a scale 1 through 5? How how do I physically feel? Am I tired? Am I achy? And I'm feeling good. How well did I cope with my emotions? And my scale is really well done to I absolutely lost my stuff. And then the last one is, did I live with a sense of purpose? And the reason it is nice to reflect on these are five elements of a healthy mindset. And by checking those on a regular basis, if something starts to get a bit out of whack, if something isn't working for me, then I get to have a moment to reflect. Why isn't it working? And what might I need to do in order to adjust that? Now, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this, if you've sort of joined this call to find out about journaling practices, you don't have to do all of these. Journaling is a personal exercise. It is an opportunity to achieve different things, whether it's through self awareness, whether it's through calming our mind, tracking what we need to do, just reflecting on things that are important to us, what we're feeling, what are our values, what are our mindsets. And so when you create a practice, It's always about what works for me. What am I going to do on a habitual basis? Because if it's too much, if it doesn't fit in, if there's no benefits to you, then what happens is it won't happen. And so these are all practices that I've spent the last few years sort of tweaking with, adding to the morning pages and evening pages is probably, I've only been doing that for maybe 6 months. And as I mentioned, I did stop doing it. But then I realized that my chaotic thoughts increased. And so I thought, no, even though it is a bit time intensive, I'm more focused when I do it. I'm able to achieve more in my day. I can sleep better because I'm not so worried about these. And so, this is one of the things, whatever journaling practices you find, if they work for you, they are the right ones to do. Don't be afraid to experiment, to tweak, to change to adapt it to yourself. So, with that, I am going to wish everyone a wonderful week, and I look forward to catching up with you all in another week's time. And in the meantime, thank you very much for listening to this video.